You know, there are moments in the life of nations when the real story isn't on the front page. It's buried 3 paragraphs deep in a wire service report that most people scroll right past. And what I'm about to tell you is one of those stories. On March 11th, 2026, while most Americans were focused on gas prices and grocery bills, the Iranian intelligence service made an announcement that should have stopped everyone in their tracks. They said they had arrested dozens of people, including at least one foreign national, on charges of spying for the United States and Israel. Now, I want you to sit with that for a moment, because most people heard that headline and thought, well, of course Iran is arresting people. That's what authoritarian regimes do. But I've been in this business long enough to know that what a government says and what a government means are often two very different things. And what Iran just told the world about American spies tells us far more about what's really happening inside that country than any official statement ever could. Now look, I've sat in that chair in the Oval Office. I've received intelligence briefings every morning before my coffee got cold. I know how the game is played. And I can tell you, when a regime that just lost its supreme leader, that just watched 900 of its military installations get reduced to rubble, that's trying desperately to prove it's still in control, when that regime starts announcing mass arrests of spies, something significant is happening. And we'll come back to exactly what that something is in a moment, because most people have no idea what Iran just discovered, or what it means for American interests in the region. Let me walk you through what we know, because in moments like this, facts matter more than speculation. On March 11th, 2026, Iranian intelligence officials held a press conference in Tehran. They announced the arrest of what they called a significant network of individuals working on behalf of American and Israeli intelligence services. The exact number hasn't been confirmed, but reports suggest dozens of people were taken into custody. At least one foreign national was among those arrested, though Iranian authorities have not disclosed the nationality or identity of that individual. Now, here's what makes this announcement different from the usual propaganda. This came less than 2 weeks after Operation Epic Fury. Less than 2 weeks after Ayatollah Khamenei was killed. Less than 2 weeks after the entire senior military command of Iran was eliminated in a single strike. The timing is not coincidental. Nothing in intelligence work ever is. Think about what it takes to hit a target like Khamenei's residence at the exact moment he's meeting with his top 50 advisors. You don't do that with satellite imagery alone. You don't do that with signals intelligence alone. You need human sources, people inside the regime, people with access to schedules, to security protocols, to real-time information about who is where and when. The precision of that strike tells you something that the Pentagon will never confirm publicly. It tells you that American and Israeli intelligence had penetrated the highest levels of the Iranian government. And now Iran is telling the world they've discovered how deep that penetration went. Here's what most people don't understand about espionage. When a government announces the arrest of spies, they're not just sharing information. They're sending messages. Multiple messages to multiple audiences. And if you know how to read those messages, you can understand what's really happening behind closed doors. The first message is internal. It's directed at the Iranian people and the Iranian security establishment. The message is simple. We are still in control. We know who betrayed us. We are rooting them out. This is a regime that just suffered the most devastating military strike in its history. A regime whose supreme leader was killed in his own residence. A regime that is now led by Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the fallen leader. A man who has never held public office, who has no military experience, who is trying to consolidate power while the rubble is still smoking. That regime needs to project strength. And nothing projects strength like announcing that you've caught the traitors who made the attack possible. The second message is external. It's directed at Washington and Tel Aviv. The message is also simple. We know you have people inside. We found them, and we're going to make them talk. Now, I want to be very careful here, because if there are American assets who have been compromised, their lives are in immediate danger. But the strategic implications of this announcement go far beyond any individual case. If Iran has genuinely rolled up a significant intelligence network, it means our ability to monitor what's happening inside the country has been severely degraded at exactly the moment we need that intelligence most. Think about what we don't know right now. We don't know the full extent of Iran's remaining military capabilities. We don't know how much of their nuclear program survived the strikes. We don't know what's happening in the power struggle between Mojtaba Khamenei, the Revolutionary Guard commanders who survived, and the various factions competing for control. We don't know what orders have been given to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to the Iraqi militias. And if our human intelligence networks have been compromised, we may not find out until it's too late. The third message is directed at potential collaborators. Anyone inside Iran who might be thinking about working with the Americans or Israelis. The message is clear. We will find you, we will catch you, and you will face the consequences. This is classic counterintelligence psychology. You don't just punish the spies you've caught. You make sure everyone knows you caught them. You create fear. You make people think twice before they pick up that phone or send that email or meet that contact in a dark alley. Now, most people are going to switch off right about now. They're going to think this is just another spy story, just another chapter in the endless shadow war between nations. But if you stay with me, I'm going to show you why this announcement matters far more than most people realize. Because what Iran just discovered about American spies tells us something crucial about what comes next. Let me take you behind the curtain of how intelligence operations actually work, because I think it's important to understand what we may have lost. When I was president, I received the president's daily brief every morning. It's the most classified document in the United States government. It contains information gathered from every source available: satellites, signals intercepts, diplomatic cables, and most importantly, human intelligence. Human, they call it. People on the ground. People with access. People who risk their lives every day to tell us what's really happening inside closed regimes. Building a human intelligence network inside a country like Iran takes years, sometimes decades. You start with one contact, maybe a diplomat, maybe a businessman, maybe a disaffected military officer. You cultivate that relationship carefully. You test their reliability. You give them small tasks to see if they can deliver. And slowly, painstakingly, you build a network of sources who can tell you things that no satellite can see. The strike that killed Khamenei required exactly that kind of network. Someone knew where he would be. Someone knew when the meeting was scheduled. Someone knew the security arrangements. Someone knew the layout of the residence. That's not information you get from space. That's information you get from people. And now Iran is telling the world they've identified those people. Here's what concerns me most. If the Iranians have genuinely compromised our intelligence networks, it means we're flying blind at the worst possible moment. We've just decapitated a regime. We've created a power vacuum. We've set in motion forces that will shape the Middle East for decades. And we may have lost our eyes and ears inside the country just when we need them most. This is the hidden cost of the precision strike. Everyone celebrates the accuracy. Everyone marvels at the intelligence that made it possible. But every intelligence operation has a shelf life. The more you use a source, the more you expose them. And when you use everything you have in one massive strike, you may win the battle and lose the ability to see what comes next. Now, let me talk about Mojtaba Khamenei, because understanding who he is tells you everything about the situation Iran is facing. Most Americans have never heard his name. He was never a public figure. He never held elected office. He never commanded troops. He was his father's gatekeeper, the man who controlled access to the supreme leader, the man who decided who got meetings and who didn't. The power behind the throne. And now, suddenly, he is the throne. In the days since Operation Epic Fury, Mojtaba has moved quickly to consolidate power. He's received formal pledges of allegiance from the Houthi leadership in Yemen, from Iraqi militia commanders, from what remains of Hezbollah's senior leadership. He's trying to prove that the network of proxies his father built over 4 decades remains intact, that Iran can still project power throughout the region even with its military infrastructure in ruins. But here's what those public pledges of loyalty don't tell you. They don't tell you about the conversations happening behind closed doors. The Revolutionary Guard commanders who survived the strikes and are wondering why they should take orders from a man who's never fired a weapon. The clerical establishment in Qom that may have its own ideas about succession. The ordinary Iranians who have protested this regime for years and may see this as their moment. The spy arrests are Mojtaba's way of saying he's in control of the security apparatus, that he can find the traitors, that he can protect the regime from its enemies. But announcements are not the same as reality. And the fact that he needs to make these announcements tells you something about how fragile his position really is. Now, let me connect the dots, because this is where the story gets really interesting. We have a new, untested leader trying to consolidate power. We have a security establishment that just suffered the most devastating blow in its history. We have intelligence networks potentially compromised on both sides. And we have proxy forces throughout the region who are watching to see whether the new leadership can deliver. This is a moment of maximum instability. And maximum instability creates maximum danger. Here's what I mean. When a regime is confident and secure, it can afford to be patient. It can calculate. It can weigh costs and benefits. It can choose its moments carefully. But when a regime is desperate, when it's trying to prove its strength to its own people and its own allies, it becomes unpredictable. It takes risks it wouldn't normally take. It lashes out in ways that don't make strategic sense, but make psychological sense. The spy arrests are a sign of that desperation. Mojtaba needs scalps. He needs to show that someone is being punished for the catastrophe that just befell his country. And nothing serves that purpose better than announcing that you've caught American and Israeli agents. But here's the danger. If Iran has genuinely identified our intelligence assets, what do they do with that information? Do they simply arrest them and put them on trial? Or do they use them to feed us disinformation at exactly the moment we need accurate intelligence most? Do they execute them publicly to send a message? Do they try to use them as double agents? Every one of those scenarios has different implications. And right now, we don't know which scenario is unfolding. Let me tell you what I see as the possible paths forward, because I think the American people deserve to understand where this could go. Scenario 1. The arrests are largely propaganda. Iran has rounded up some low-level contacts, some suspected dissidents, maybe a few people who had peripheral connections to Western organizations, and they're calling them spies to boost morale and project strength. The actual intelligence networks remain largely intact, operating more carefully, and we maintain our ability to monitor what's happening inside the country. Scenario 2. The arrests are real but limited. Iran has identified some genuine intelligence assets, probably as a result of the operational security failures that inevitably accompany a massive strike like Epic Fury. We've lost some capability, but not all of it. The intelligence community is already working to rebuild, to establish new contacts, to find new sources. Scenario 3. The compromise is extensive. Iran, possibly with help from Russian or Chinese counterintelligence services, has rolled up a significant portion of our human intelligence network. Our ability to see inside the country has been severely degraded. We're making decisions about one of the most volatile situations in the world based on satellite imagery and signals intelligence alone, without the human context that tells you what those images actually mean. Scenario 4. This is a trap. Iran is announcing the arrests publicly precisely because they want us to think our networks are compromised. They want us to go dark. They want our remaining assets to panic and reveal themselves. They want us to make mistakes in trying to extract people or verify who has been caught. Counterintelligence is a hall of mirrors, and sometimes the most dangerous move is the one your enemy wants you to make. I don't know which scenario is correct. Maybe it's some combination of all of them. But I know this. The announcement of these arrests, coming at this moment, with this timing, is not routine. Something significant is happening inside Iran's security establishment, and we need to understand what it is before we can know what comes next. Now, let me bring this back to what it means for ordinary Americans, because I think that's important. Most people hear about spy arrests in Iran and think it's a world away. It doesn't affect their lives. It's just another story from a region they'll never visit about people they'll never meet. But here's the connection. Our intelligence capabilities directly affect our ability to make good decisions. When presidents have accurate information, they can calibrate their responses. They can avoid overreaction. They can see opportunities for diplomacy. They can understand when threats are real and when they're bluster. But when presidents are flying blind, when they're making decisions based on incomplete or inaccurate information, that's when mistakes happen. That's when wars escalate. That's when American service members get sent into harm's way based on faulty assumptions. The spy arrests in Iran aren't just a counterintelligence story. They're a story about whether America can navigate the aftermath of the most significant military operation in decades without stumbling into a wider conflict. They're a story about whether we'll know what Mojtaba Khamenei is planning before it's too late. They're a story about whether the next phase of this confrontation will be shaped by intelligence or by ignorance. And here's the honest truth. we may have just lost a significant portion of our ability to answer those questions. Let me close with this, because I think it needs to be said. Intelligence work is not glamorous. It doesn't come with medals or parades. The men and women who serve in our intelligence agencies and the foreign nationals who risk everything to help them operate in shadows. Their successes are classified. Their failures become headlines. And sometimes, as we may be seeing now, they pay the ultimate price for their service. If American assets have been compromised in Iran, if people who trusted us are now in Iranian prisons facing interrogation and worse, that is a tragedy, not a strategic setback, a human tragedy. People who believed in something enough to risk their lives, who trusted that America would protect them, who are now at the mercy of a regime that has every reason to make examples of them. I don't know their names. I may never know their names, but I know what they represent. They represent the hidden cost of the operations we celebrate. They represent the human beings behind the intelligence that makes precision strikes possible. And they deserve to be remembered, even if we can never speak their names publicly. So here's what I'm asking. I'm asking the administration to be honest about what we've lost. Not in public, not in ways that would further endanger our remaining assets, but in the classified briefings to Congress that are supposed to provide oversight. I'm asking Congress to demand those briefings, to understand the true cost of Operation Epic Fury, not just the targets destroyed, but the capabilities degraded. I'm asking the intelligence community to learn from whatever went wrong and to protect the people who are still in harm's way. And I'm asking every American to understand that the spy story you scroll past in the news is never just a spy story. It's a window into the hidden war that shapes everything else. The war of information and deception. The war that determines whether our leaders make good decisions or catastrophic ones. What Iran just discovered about American spies matters. It matters more than most people realize. And how we respond to that discovery will shape the next chapter of this confrontation in ways we're only beginning to understand. Now that you know what's really happening, now that you understand the stakes and the risks and the hidden costs, the question isn't what Iran will do with the information they've gathered. The question is what America will do to rebuild what we've lost and to protect the people who still serve in the shadows. Thank you for staying with me to the end. This isn't an easy story. It doesn't have heroes and villains and a clear resolution. But it's an important story, and the fact that you stayed to hear it tells me something about the kind of citizen you are. God bless the men and women who serve in our intelligence agencies. God bless those who risk everything to help us. And God bless the United States of America. This video represents independent political analysis and commentary for educational purposes. The views expressed are interpretive assessments based on publicly available information and historical parallels, presented through an analytical framework inspired by the perspective of experienced political leadership.